Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Adam.
Hi.
Hey.
How is everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. No complaints.
Feeling great.
I'm hoping that this is working and people can see us. I feel like 100-year-old person whenever I have to do a virtual video thing. So I'm just going to assume everybody can see things, that this is live. Our tech person, Alita, wants me to apologize, I suppose, on behalf of Venus Fest, but then also I think it's fine with a lot of us here. The wrong waiting room video was rolling, so the people here are different from the people you might have thought you would be seeing. But we're here to chat and to get things started, and welcome. Before we go any further, I'm going to start with the land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge Venus Fest is located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. During virtual Venus Fest, many of our artists and participants will be located on different unceded territories beyond this. Please take some time to learn about the history of the land on which you live, the communities who have cared for this land, and how you might participate in restoring justice. Sorry, give me one moment. Hi, sorry. My partner was listening in the other room and I was like feeding back like an echo. So I wanted to make sure that I could hear myself and everything was fine. Appreciate you bearing with me during a little bit of like tech interruption. But I want to thank everybody for sharing this virtual space with us. I know that sometimes even when you're at home and you're hanging out or you had a really busy day, it can take a lot to actually like click on a link and join conversations like this when there are a lot of big and small things that are exhausting us throughout the day. And hopefully this can be a space for us to brainstorm. This can be a space for us to heal. This can be a space for us to talk through a lot of big topics with, you know, a lot of levity and a lot of light and hopefully a lot of hope. And I think when it comes to what shifting the conversation means, I'm so pleased and I'm so grateful to have a multidisciplinary group of people here with so many different voices and knowledge backgrounds and experiences that can hopefully really help us paint a picture for a new future from a couple of different angles. So we're going to start with some bios in case any of the panelists would like to say something first. I'm gonna jump into those.
Bio? Are you gonna pick us or are we gonna pick ourselves? I think
you know what? It's totally up to you. I mean, I was gonna do some stuff. I was gonna intro bio you guys. Bio
go for it. I would love that.
Yeah.
I love hearing people talk about me other than me, so that's great.
Go for it.
Let's do this.
I wish I was better at voices. I would love to, like, in a perfect scenario, I could like read your bio in the voice of like your favorite person. But I can't subject anybody to that because I'm terrible. But I do have this inclination of kind of wanting to read everybody's bio like an announcer, but I'm going to try and restrain myself. So we have Morgan. Pardon? Oh, we have Morgan Schrappner. After working in the world of record labels and radio, Morgan joined AdHoc Presents in 2017. Since joining, she's helped generate over $170,000 in ticket sales, develop AdHoc's growing marketing department, and drive the company's event marketing with succinct focus and professionalism. Under Morgan's direction, Facebook selected AdHoc as the success case study for advertising music events on their platform. Ariane Tong is I feel like
Ariane Tong.
Oh, Arianne, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I appreciate you stopping me and correcting me and clarifying. Ariane Tong is a 2020 iHeartJoke nominated comedian and producer and host of QE Trivia, group therapy podcasts, and girl gang cabarets based in Toronto. She's raised over $3,000 for local charities during the pandemic by hosting uplifting and engaging virtual events, and is using her platforms and comedy to spotlight organizations working tirelessly to improve our local and global community. And the dumpster fire that is 2020 and all of the years prior that made it a possibility. Sammy Maine is a British freelance writer and editor living in Catskill, New York. She co-edits the quarterly music journal GoldFlakePaint and has written for the likes of Shreds, Guitar.com, Music Tech Magazine, and Enemy. Alicia B began her career as an art director in some pretty great agencies, St. John Street, Taxi, Zulu, Alpha Kilo, for 6 years before making the switch to event production and talent management. Since then, she's seen over 100 live shows, developed close ties to Toronto's music scene. Currently, she's managing 2 artists, Kareem Olin Ash and Prime Diesel, co-founder of the concert series It's Okay, the founder of the event production company Pollen, and an art director for Virtue, the agency born from Vice. She has never been interested in sleep. Okay. Hello. How is everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Busy bunch here.
busy bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, if everybody's comfortable and everybody's ready, maybe we can just get started. And I thought it would be really nice to begin this conversation by just positioning where everyone is coming from. And since we're talking about what it means to shift the conversation, to have to kind of begin with framing how we have these conversations and just how we speak and how we communicate more openly. So if everybody wants to describe their storytelling or narrative style in your respective medium, and maybe a little bit of how it's evolved and changed over the years.
I think that I can start things off. Being a comedian, I think that I have like a different sort of narrative style than the other panelists. My process for creating is mostly introspective, and so a lot of what I do comes from like reflecting on my own, what's going on in my own life, and then trying to create a product that is relatable, but also stays true to who I am as a person. And I feel that since I've started looking at it in that way, it's been a faster trajectory to success than when I first started many years ago, when I felt like very chaotic about my narrative storytelling and like my storytelling through doing comedy sets, which I know it's a music panel, but I feel like the comedians and musicians have a lot in common in like telling a story in just a mere few minutes, whether it's song or through like a set, and I think that staying true to yourself and staying true to your message and making sure that everything is consistent, that has been my evolution as an artist in that way. And I feel like, just narrowing in on your focus and what is truly important to you is the narrative that you need to sort of build within yourself so that it's more clear to other people.
Fabulous.
Awesome. I'll take it next. So I guess a little bit more on the context of what I do. I work for a concert promoter / music publication called AdHoc. We put on hundreds of shows a year, mostly in the New York area. And, AdHoc actually started as a zine back in 2012 and then kind of evolved into a concert promotion type of business. So yeah, the content that we put out, both on our online blog and our zine, has always been very like artist perspective centric. So publishing a lot of guest posts by artists, whether it's like their favorite recipe or them offering life advice, that kind of thing. So I think that's for the perspective, for my specific medium that, I'm really lucky to be able to help elevate artists' voice in that way.
So, I mean, I'll talk about the three things very quickly. So first of all, Pollen is a love project. It was just started with me and two of my best friends, Sophie Jones and Nikki Bargary. We just wanted to create a new space where women were warm. We were allowed to be really flirty. That's a big part of the ethos is like, you know, we can dress how we want and behave how we want. And it doesn't mean anything to anyone. It's just like, you know, it was a space for us to like bring decor back to parties and book, you know, POCs and create safe spaces. And I think the beauty of that project is that like everyone talks about how safe that room is. So the way we talk about that is really playful. Like our online narrative is super playful. It's okay is literally, it's okay. It's very sentimental. It's entirely about music. It's about, again, you know, creating spaces that everyone belongs in. I think that's a through line in everything that I do. But I think a cool thing about It's Okay, as far as like a brand that, you know, puts out visual things, is that I've been an art director for so many years. So the entire core of that design guideline is breaking the rules and, you know, lining things up in the wrong way. Terms and conditions apply is like our tagline, and it's just broken wrong for no reason. So it's like a bit punk rock, I guess, in that respect. And then for work, obviously, I work in advertising, but I think it's important to mention that Virtue is a super weird version of an advertising space, in that it's, you know, super queer and super POC. And I think we value those things a lot. So we approach all of our work with that. And it's amazing to have a huge platform where we can always push diversity and always push new stories. So yeah, safe things, diverse things is kind of always the motive.
Yeah. Oh, I think we might have Sammy back just in time to answer, hopefully. Hi, Sammy.
She's frozen.
Oh no,
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm having technical issues. I just.
This happens so often. I feel for everyone. Like I sounded underwater this morning.
Hi, Sammy. I mean, I feel like this right now, this is like living in the technology age. Technology lies to us sometimes, and it betrays us, and it is not a loyal partner in art and culture, even though at times it is. Sammy, can you hear us? You keep freezing, so we don't want to ask you something prematurely, but getting a question from Alita. All right. Well, I think, yeah, I think it looks like there might be a scenario where Sammy might be frozen on our end, but she's not frozen on the other end. But I suppose we'll keep going. I wonder if you guys can talk a little bit about some of the changes you've seen in music-based marketing, and if you think that the industry as a whole is moving in a direction that is a little bit more intentional, is a little bit more thoughtful.
I was distracted. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It is okay. This is a place where we can giggle. Technology and your computer is like the Wild West sometimes. Sammy is saying sorry. And Sammy, you are so forgiven. And everything is totally fine. And I was asking the panelists if they've seen any changes or any positive developments in music-based marketing that's a little bit more intentional, that's a little bit more thoughtful, that looks like the folks on the side who are either creating ads or telling stories are just thinking about things in a little bit differently than maybe the past or when you first entered the industry.
Yeah, definitely. I can speak from my perspective. I used to be marketing dozens of shows simultaneously. Now there are 0 to market. But with that, well, I should say 0 live shows to market. There are, of course, so many live streams that are constantly competing for our attention. And so it's been really interesting figuring out how to adjust advertising plans and figure out, you know, I feel like before, when I would, you know, be scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, every other ad was an ad that was getting served to me from a band that I followed. And now when I feel like when artists are choosing to spend what money they may still have coming in on an advertising plan, it's something that's a lot more intentional, like the rollout of a new album or music video or single. And I really appreciate that because, you know, there's just so many things you can do on a Friday night, and obviously none of them are going out to shows anymore.
Yeah, I think that it's just an opportunity for all creators. Like, you know, if you're in events right now, you just had to pivot to virtual events, and like you have to find a way and like challenge yourself to make it like exciting enough to attract a certain audience, because there's just so much on the internet now, even though a lot of people I feel have been weeded out by just not being able to pivot to online. I think that those who have moved to online know that you have to, you know, the branding has to be good, but you also need to book really good acts. You have to like, you got to actually put some effort into this to make it special. And I'm on the board of directors at Wavelength Music, and I think that we do a pretty good job at making each show feel very special. We had our 800th show just, I think it was just two months ago, and we had a host. We had like acts that were in different places. We organized a show where the band was playing live, but it was live streamed from a venue, the Piston, and we sent beer to all the people who sent tickets beforehand. So it's just kind of like creating those connections and like making it feel as much like a live event from the comfort of your own home as possible. So things like that, like making it feel special despite the circumstances. And honestly, it's just like a major pivot. So I think that just thinking outside the box is going to be great for anyone doing virtual events.
Yeah, I mean, covered a lot, but yeah, I think that, you know, one thing I've noticed is that there's been so much pressure to stay relevant and to stay like, you know, in front of people over this time from artists and organizers. And I think that it's kind of, now we're seeing it as an unnecessary stress, especially as we're like, you know, leaning into so much digital fatigue. We're on Zoom calls all day, a lot of us, or like, you know, looking at screens all day. And I think that was a really big insight, at least for It's Okay, where we were like, at the beginning of the year, we were like in this race to like figure out what we're going to do, because we canceled so many shows and so many things that we wanted to do. And I think that Saeed, my partner, and we just took a beat and we were like, okay, let's just relax and like think about what we want to do. It's Okay is such an intimate project. It's about small rooms and like big artists and always kind of switching things up. I'm going to try so hard not to swear on this call. But what we did,
I think you can swear.
You can swear? Okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to give you that authority, but I'm just going to say you can.
We got permission. We can swear.
Okay, perfect. Anyways, yeah, you know, this big boom of innovation at the beginning of COVID, where everyone was kind of like doing cool things, and Travis Scott's Fortnite happened, and like, you know, all of these amazing, you know, thoughtful digital ideas came out, and I just didn't think we didn't really fit in that world, so we kind of shifted into these like movie nights, which was super like cute and like simple, and that was a way for us to get a performer at the beginning of the show and showcase, you know, get some money in artists' pockets. And I think that a big learning that we took away from that is that analog always kind of, you know, reigns supreme, especially in a time like this. And that if you're going to be in the digital space, it better be good. Like it better be clever and it better be something special, because the onslaught of everything and streaming, like, you know, another great example of that time was Club Quarantine, which was like an overnight success, which was crazy, right? It's just not our lane. But I think that was a really, you know, beautiful project and a really big way to bring music and keep music alive and elevate it from Toronto. But yeah, I think that the movie nights for us was we were really, really proud of that.
Mm-hmm. I think what's so interesting about all of those responses is just this ambition and this ability to not fit something that can't really fit into this current cultural moment into a a box into a box if it's an octagon, I suppose, or a different shape that has different parameters, and that there's this capability, and that there also is this opportunity to build things that are like designed for this space. You know, I feel like in a lot of the work that you guys do, there's an element where a lot of times you're introducing audiences to a new artist, or introducing audiences to something fresh for the first time. And I wonder what elements of an artist you're all mindful of trying to highlight and incorporate when you're talking about them, and when you're putting them in front of a new set of eyes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's now more important than ever to make sure that you're showcasing a diverse set of artists. I mean, it's just from a perspective, from a marketing perspective and from a fan perspective, like I'm just not that interested anymore in a bunch of straight white guys playing guitars. That's just maybe me, but I think from a promoter and a showcase standpoint, like having a diverse set of POC queer artists, having folks that actually stand for something and have a story that they need to share and they want to share is so, so important. And hopefully will continue to be even more important as, you know, things continue to change, pandemic or not.
Yeah, that's definitely like a huge factor that I've noticed and I think has been elevated during this time. Like when I'm booking an artist or working with an artist or marketing an artist, the things that I always think about are what are they doing differently? How are they fucking things up? You know, like what is their story? And I think now we have an opportunity to get closer to a lot of artists. You know, there's a lot of people that we're, you know, getting a bit closer to their story, or they're inviting us into their process, like Charlie XCX. And I think, you know, I'm in this constant loop, especially in management, of talking about how to break an artist. And I think now is like really the testing ground for that, because I've never thought it was real. I've always believed that this, like, you know, this star formula didn't exist. It was always about story and it was always about authenticity. And I think that the artists that are really going to shine, especially during this time, are people that, you know, let us get a bit closer to them and honestly are human in this whole process, aren't needing to put out this like endless feed of material. It's like, no, just take a moment and craft something and maybe give us a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it's just that thoughtfulness and intentionality. Sometimes you do need to just take a step back to see the whole picture, and just sort of go from there. I think that a lot of what you said, Alicia, I relate to that, because not having stand-up comedy anymore has been difficult for me and a lot of comedians. So I've had to pivot online to do trivia, and who would have known that I would start a trivia company that would be, you know, hosting team building exercises for various companies and like doing weekly shows. Like, it's just kind of one of those things that you have to, you know, just pivot your skill sets to. And then also it's an opportunity for me right now to be, you know, highlighting different local talent that can't find jobs right now. So I'm also thinking, like, when I'm booking artists, like, obviously, like, I'm a person of color, so I think that it's important that we highlight more voices like that. Like, I'm more of my friends who, you know, I know are great comedians who always get cast on like the, I don't know, like the women's only comedy show or whatever, or the, you know, there's so few of them that they get branded that way. So it's just sort of everyone's suffering right now, having so few shows, that it's like, whatever opportunity you have to lift somebody else up and give them a platform, that's important to do. And then just do the normal good producer things, like sharing everything that they do and making it as easy for your audience to find them afterwards, before, during, and afterwards the show. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so incredible about that point, and I think that what all of you said, is that there is a way to kind of figure out how you blend and infuse your work with the politics that you uphold, the radical politics that are designed to achieve liberation, and a lot of the other work that you do, that those two aren't separate. It's like an act that you participate in every day. Okay, so before I move on, we're going to try something wild. Alita is going to try and re-add Sammy, and we're going to hope the video works, the sound works.
Hi.
Yes. Welcome.
I'm sitting on the floor next to my internet router.
That's crazy.
Here's the radiator. So thank you for your patience. I'm so sorry I was running around like a headless chicken. But I've been enjoying that part of the discussion that I could actually hear. So
we are so grateful to have you join us. Thank you. I can imagine I hope you can take a moment to have some water and take a breath and just sort of rest, because I hope that wasn't terribly stressful for you.
Well, I don't want to watch this back because I don't want to know what that looked like at all. So yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us now, but I guess you were with us the entire time.
In spirit.
In spirit, always here in spirit.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can put it out to everybody, because I, can imagine that when you do work at a high level, there's a team around you that supports you, a team that fills in your blind spots, a team that fills in, the projects that you're working on with information that you might not have available to you. And for artists of any sort of space, especially music, whether you're a musician looking to build a management team, a marketing team, a PR team, whether you're somebody who thinks you would be a good fit as a manager, but you're also looking to figure out which artist is a good fit for you to pair with. What are some qualities working in music, working in art and culture that people should be aware of when they are building some of those teams, and especially considering a team that can, look out for some of those more negative, like, ickier parts of the industry?
I'll go. Shall I go?
You're welcome to go.
Yeah. So with creative endeavors and creating music and creating art that you really care about, you're gonna want to take every opportunity that comes your way. And some of those opportunities are not going to be good ones for you. And a lot of people are going to take advantage of you because you love what you do so much. So I think it's really important just to listen to your gut. And someone once told me that a quick no is often easier than a paused yes. And just to be mindful of who's looking out for you, and to really take the only opportunities that feel good to you in that moment. If someone says, oh, you should do it for the exposure, or you should do it for this or that reason, like, you still need to eat, you still need to pay rent. There are, of course, some things that are worthwhile doing for exposure, but if while you're building a team, these opportunities are being pushed on you over and over again, and you're getting tired and it doesn't feel good, like, you just need to build a team that is choosing the right opportunities for you that you feel good about. And another thing I will say, if you're looking to get coverage as a new artist, never ever pay for coverage, because that is just abhorrent. I can't believe that publications do that. So that's a huge no-no. Yeah.
I think when building a team, I think that it's important that you find people who are in whatever you're doing 100% with you. Otherwise, you're just going to be very disillusioned at some point down the line. And when working with other people, it's so important to be communicative about exactly what you want, because when you're building a team, it's like the information, if there's any breakdown whatsoever, it's just you'll see it in the results. It's not going to be what you planned for or expected. And also, I found that when creating like a successful partnership in work, find somebody who's like mostly who's like you, but like thinks in a different way, who's like the opposite to you, kind of like your yin and yang person, somebody you can bounce ideas off of and have that collaborative back and forth without feeling like you have to censor yourself, you know? So I find that when building a team of just like, even if you're not working with them directly every day, even if it's just one of your peers, just choose people who have that mindset that is supportive and not competitive necessarily.
Absolutely. I think it's also important, and Sammy kind of already touched on this too, but yeah, not always taking the first opportunity that comes knocking. You know, if you're an artist or a new band or performer or whatever, like, don't take the first record deal that comes your way. It's probably not a good one. And always align yourself with people who A, have your best interest in mind, and B, like, you actually like working with. I can't stress enough, if you don't like working with people, then it's just going to be a bad time for everybody.
Yeah, I think like, you know, I have two kind of answers to this one question, but the first one is, you know, I love team. I have never played a team sport, but I like doing team things. And I think like Saeed is the best version of learning how to be a good teammate that I've ever experienced. Like, I'm kind of this like lunatic, like creative person, and he is the person that, like, no matter what, we know that every single show is the safest version of a show that you've ever had, the most like well-produced version of a show. Like, he's so tidy that it lets me be a lunatic. And I think like that's really important, is like someone you trust and someone you can be really vulnerable with is really key. Like, there's been some times over the past, like, you know, since we started, that I'm just like, I'm tired, I can't. And he's like, okay, do what you can. I'll cover it, and vice versa, which is really nice. And then my second answer is like building a team as an artist. And I've had this experience where, you know, working with artists has showed me that the best artists that I've worked with or that I've seen are their own creative directors. And I think it's really important for them to understand every aspect of how they're sharing their story, and then fill in the blanks with, you know, like you've mentioned, like-minded people or people that share that vision. I think that is the best way that an artist can come to life, instead of being handed a template and being part of this machine that is like, here is what your story looks like, and it doesn't work. I think it's really important that they are the puppet master and everything, and they find other people that they're supporting with the same vision along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you to all of you guys for sharing. I think I think about this question a lot, because I think in my career, sometimes I typically end up profiling or coming into contact with artists after everything is like fully formed, and you just get this package, and it's like, here's this person that you know, a bunch of other people helped create. And it just makes me wonder and sometimes empathize when 4 or 5 years down the line, I'll interview those same artists and their stories are difficult because people have been challenged by just not having a secure and safe place for them to land when parts of the industry are sort of bearing down on them. And to that point, I also feel like just the landscape and the ecosystem of music coverage and how artists get on somebody's radar and how people are talking about artists once they're on their radar or somebody's radar has just shifted so much over time. For new artists, what are some of your suggestions, or what are some of your forecasts for places that artists, especially maybe those that don't have a really big or full PR team behind them, like where should they be seeking coverage? And are those places still music publications, or are there other ways artists should be thinking about how to put themselves in front of people?
I would really, can you hear me? I know my camera's gone off, but okay.
We can hear you.
I would really stress for smaller artists and people just starting out to really look to their local press and their local radio stations, and to start off with music publications, because your local scene is the one that's going to champion you from the beginning. And they're really going to build you up, and it's going to give you a really good experience in doing interviews and in inviting press to your concerts and in requesting reviews. So local press is really where it's at. And then if you want to go bigger, I think it's being more specific with which publications you really want to be in. I'm not talking about shooting for the moon and going for the huge ones, but there are indie publications like GoldFlakePaint, just to say that, but that will cover smaller artists. And if you research the publications that you really like, you'll be able to pitch them what they're looking for because you know the publication so well. So you kind of have to be a bit of a journalist or a PR yourself in the beginning. And another point I will add is I see a lot of artists starting out who will hire PR teams straight away. And that is not always the best thing for you to do. Like sometimes it will be great, but sometimes you are not at that stage yet, and that's okay. And it's okay to do things on your own first and to save that money. Because if a PR team is promising you the world, it's probably too good to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so well said. I think some good advice too. I mean, it's so difficult starting out as a new band, but not only leaning into your local press coverage, but just becoming part of your local scene. Those first people that are going to come to your shows are probably other people who are in bands themselves. And, you know, maybe they're opening for you and then you're opening for them the next week. And then that's how you, as an artist just starting out, that's how you're going to establish yourself in the scene and make friends. Because again, as a concert promoter, like half the time we'll be the ones to be like, oh, so-and-so is going to open this show. But most of the time it's the band being like, no, I want X, Y, and Z to open my show. And then X, Y, and Z in a year and a half from then is headlining their own show. They kind of just came into our radar that way. And it is really, really organic. So when the shows come back, new bands should just keep trying to play as many shows as possible.
I think I agree with all of that. I think that for people who don't have a lot of money, which is basically everyone in the beginning of anything, is to one, source the local opportunities and kind of be your own PR person. And like, even though I feel like it shouldn't technically be our job to do that, it is your job. Like, you have to be comfortable with talking about yourself and being your own champion, or else nobody else will. Eventually it will become somebody else's job. But I feel like in the beginning, you have to sell yourself, basically. What are your strengths? Like, get to know like what you bring to any event, what people are going to get, focus in on those strengths, and also be a good performer. Like, be good at putting out content that people love. That's like, I feel like no matter what the branding or press release, like if you don't have good content, it's not going to be good. And also being a good person that people want to book on their shows and want to be ambassadors for you. So like, that means being respectful of the producer and not talking smack, not saying anything stupid, like keeping it professional. Like, I don't know, like being able to gauge a room and like being respectful in that way, being respectful to other musicians or whatever artists you're dealing with. And also just being respectful of getting there on time and the rules and like the environment that the person is putting on for you. Like, try to respect that and like be communicative about everything, because obviously nothing is perfect every time, you know what I mean? So, and especially in this virtual world, like a lot of things happen, right? So just being as communicative as possible and just keeping a positive attitude, because people love working with people who are fun and friendly and they keep booking you. So
yeah, like, I mean, I think you guys like covered a lot of it, so I'm not gonna like hammer the truth in. But I think two things that I would add are to watch who's writing these stories. You know, like they're usually local people. They're usually people that are at shows, the people around you. Just get familiar. And the other thing is like, you know, I'm going to beat it over the head, but story is queen. You know, your narrative, your truth is the most important thing that people will want to write about. I mean, and good music, obviously, but I think it's really important to kind of express that. And I think that one really good practice that I, you know, not to be like an egomaniac about it, but I think a good tip for like to practice is with everything that you put out is like, what is the headline? You know, big thing, small thing is just to think through, like, what are those words? What am I trying to say through my music, through my, you know, my visuals, through everything that I do? What am I trying to say? What is the purpose? Because the moment that it's in vain or for no one, then it's time to like kind of reapproach that, because nobody's going to write about something that doesn't have a story behind it. So I think it's just a really good way to put it to practice is to ask what the headline is.
I think I have never considered that before, but now I kind of feel like I want to get that etched somewhere in my line of sight, because I think that is crucial. And you're so right. Story is queen. And I think that ultimately, if you're going into music or you're going into art, you want to assume that you might have something to say. And I think that, you know, when everybody is saying a million things at the same time and they're screaming, it can take a lot of work to cut through that noise and figure out what your voice is, exactly what it is you want to articulate and how you want to articulate that message. I feel like we're living in an era, and especially now that everything is virtual, that personal branding can be a really good tool and can be a really good resource for artists who are putting themselves in front of different people and different spaces, and also sometimes is that bridge between, you know, who somebody thinks that they are and how they're actually presenting themselves more openly. How should artists go about creating that, and where should they start when they need to start thinking about their personal brand, and maybe especially when you consider how that translates to social media and like that whole world of things?
Yeah, definitely. An artist's personal brand is like not an easy thing to start figuring out, especially if you don't know what the music is going to sound like yet. Everything should be informed by the music. But as an artist starts to develop their brand and their tone, all of that, color, aesthetic, things that kind of go into what makes their brand, all of that should be forward facing on social media. You know, we as consumers love visual cues. We love being able to make those small connections and, you know, connect the dots between all the different things that make an artist an artist. And I think consistency is also really important when trying to communicate that either verbally or visually as an artist now in 2020 and probably forever.
I definitely, I think that consistency is great. And like, if you like anything in social media, and I love branding. Like whenever I see Alicia's posts, like my eyes are just happy. Like she's just such a great designer. And like I love a great design, but also I think that there's something to be said for, like, you know, sometimes not having a brand at all can be its own brand for some reason. I don't think that we need to, like, you know, if you're not somebody who is, you know, posting every day and like, that's just not who you are as a person. I feel like that's part of your story. If we're going with the story is queen thing, like, I think just focus on the content of what you're saying and what you're doing. And then, you know, you'll build a following from there quite naturally. And I have examples of it in the comedy community. One of the most, well, going to be such a huge star, I think, in the comedy community is Aisha Brown. I don't know if any of you know about her yet, but she was the first Black woman to ever have a Crave special here in Canada. And she does not post on social media whatsoever. She posts like maybe once every few I don't know, few months or something. Like she's just not there, but she's putting in the work, like going out to do shows, just staying busy. And she's built up so many connections just by word of mouth, referral, being a good person in general. You know, just like she's worked with Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart and stuff. Like I just look to that as like, okay, on the opposite side of the spectrum, somebody who does not pay attention to social media whatsoever is gaining traction and is a woman of color, and it's very inspiring. And I feel like there's just something to be said there on the opposite side, so that you're not stressed trying to figure out the social media strategy if you're not like at all part of that world. I think it helps a little bit to share with others what you're doing, but I wouldn't break my neck trying to figure out something that, like, you know, is just not part of who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, you know, especially as someone that works in advertising, which was really funny to me when everyone started talking about their brand, you know, which is just like a hilarious thing, but a real thing, you know, when we live in like Instagram, TikTok culture, like your brand is your thing. And I think that we're in what is your brand 2.0 right now. Like, I think that it is a time where, like, you know, I'm really loud about, like, I love politics. I love smart things. I love discourse. I love to read. But I'm at a point right now where it's like I talk very loudly about how much I love, like, romantic television, romantic reality TV. Like, best believe I've seen every fucking episode of Love Island. Absolutely. It's
Love it. Yeah.
and absolutely, but I've seen every episode. And like, I think that is what's winning right now is, like, you know, like you said, Ariane, about Aisha Brown, is like, think about King Cruel. You know, he's kind of created this perfect life where he's, you know, this big musician that nobody knows anything about him. And I think that is going to kind of become this thing where your brand can look as however you want it to look, but nobody's going to believe it if you're making it up. Nobody's going to believe it if you're telling a story of this big glossy thing, which I think is a really nice shift. And I think it's going to be a space of comfort and an ease of anxiety for a lot of musicians. The moment they realize, like, I don't really have to do all of these things that this person is doing. It's like, create your own lane and do it how you want to. And that should be your brand. I'm a big advocate for that.
I think that is a hugely, hugely important point that you all made. As somebody who is like pretty scared of Twitter, despite writing things, and oftentimes will get very overwhelmed by social media. I think that artists feel like their desire to be public facing, or the idea that they need to be public facing, can sometimes outweigh their own health, and the ways that being public all the time can really burn you out. And I wonder, what are some of your suggestions or strategies for artists? And I think you kind of all touched on this in your own way, but, you know, for artists who are just struggling in that space between feeling like they need to take time away from social media, but still wanting to put out new music and still wanting to create and kind of be top of mind. Like, how do you weigh that? And maybe the answer isn't necessarily something that's tangible. Maybe it's like a timeline. So for example, like, how long should an artist take away from being part of the conversation or being in the public eye before they can return? And just like some of those things.
I mean, I'm sorry. I think whatever it takes. I think, like, taking a moment. I feel that too. You know, like, I feel like I think about, I haven't posted a story in a minute. It's like I post garbage on my Instagram. And I think, like, you know, when we look at someone like Frank Ocean, right? Like, this man took years, and he's amazing and a brilliant poet and writer and musician. But it's whatever feels good for you, because I think that's where beautiful art is born, on your own time. And I think, like, I think the influencer model is dying. I think, like, the time to post all these things is going to end. And I think that it's going to be quality over quantity, especially in the next, like, you know, short-term future. It's going to be about what you post, and the things people keep pulling up, or the things that people keep sharing, even old things, is going to be much more important than how often you post.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Just like, from a personal standpoint, like, making mental health number one, and not always having to be this pleaser and this public facing whatever on social media. Like it's so important. Artists, performers, human beings in general. Just take care of yourself and worry about all the social stuff later, because ultimately it'll help maybe, but it's not as important as you are as a person.
No, definitely taking time out and recognizing when that threshold is for you, because some people can do way more in an hour than others, and you should just not feel bad that you're not doing like 20 things because X person is doing 20 things. I feel like it's just that comparativeness makes it even more stressful, and just not paying attention to what other people are doing and staying true to yourself. But if you are gonna if you need strategies to be more productive, but also want to be lazy, I'm a big fan of scheduling things and living and dying by the calendar. I schedule rest time into my calendar. I schedule when I'm going to do my posts. I use Tailwind, which I find pretty good. It's like Hootsuite or whatever. And that's been good. So I choose a day that I'm going to do all the stuff, the garbage that I don't want to do. And then I just set it and forget it. It's automated. I feel like as long as you can schedule things and stick to a relative schedule, and then you can feel good about being lazy at other times, because I feel like you just want to enjoy life. Am I wrong? I feel like we just want to enjoy life out here, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Where I live.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when there are so few options to enjoy things, right? You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So when there is something in front of you that you can enjoy, you're not feeling like you're pulled in a million different directions. Which I think, that just idea of, not only being respective and really sitting in and understanding this period, but taking a moment to imagine what could come after and what the future could look like, and hopefully be able to repair a lot of the parts about the industry and a lot of the social systems we live within that are fundamentally broken. What are some ways in your experience and in your lives you would like to see the industries and the spaces that you're working in evolve and shift to be more artist focused, and to also just be more people and person focused?
I love that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry. I think that just from my perspective, I'd love to see more mentorship in the community and helping each other get to the next level, because there is as I said, music and comedy are kind of similar in that nobody is holding your hand to teach you how to do things. You kind of have to teach yourself, or you go to a panel like this where people, tell you what to do, and you try to get as much out of it as possible. And it's just, I think that I would have benefited from, having some kind of a mentorship relationship, right in the beginning, or opportunities to grow that, I don't know, there's certain things that when you're new, you just can't see. So it's just helpful to have somebody else who is more advanced, be able to kind of show you the ropes and stuff. And I think right now it's just, if you have a charismatic personality, you feel comfortable going out and asking for help, that's great. You're going to probably succeed way faster than somebody else. But a lot of people, a lot of artists, I think, are shy naturally and afraid to ask for help, and they're not used to being encouraged to do the thing that they love. So I think that creating more opportunities to feel like it's okay to be a creator and it's okay to be an artist, and feel no shame about it, and build an actual career from there, instead of feeling like what you're doing is constantly a hobby for the first little while. Because that's the first hump to get through, is feeling like it's a hobby, and then feeling like it's a career afterwards. So that would be what I'm looking for in the future.
I was so excited when I knew this question was coming and that Melissa was the moderator, because you know what I'm going to say. Melissa came to a movie night, and I kid you not, the ripple effect of this comment has been unbelievable. But Melissa came to a movie night, and she came up to me after, and she was like, "It was really nice to clap for something." And I was like, damn. And I have, like, since she said that, I've had so many like lengthy conversations about it. I've talked about it in client meetings. I've talked about it with everybody. And I think that's the point, is like, after this, everything is going to be special again. Like, there's no more asking for lists. There's way more buying tickets. There's way more small rooms because we've lost venues. Like, everything about it is so special. So I would say, like, my biggest advice to like organizers and artists is like, craft the show, you know, craft the moment, think about how special everything can be. And I think like we've like, especially Saeed and I with It's Okay, we've always been talking about instruments and craft and show and, you know, what comes together, but it's like, this is a whole different ball game now. I think like the moment that we get to see a live show, and I was lucky enough to see one at Pop Montreal, like, you know, a few at Pop Montreal that were amazing. And it's just different. Like, you're not even worried about a half full room. It's an entirely different thing. It's not about this big, you know, elevated experience. It's just artists, an instrument or no instrument, and someone to watch it, I think, which is a really nice thing, something to look forward to for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, off of both of those statements, like, just thinking about when shows do come back and continuing as an artist to have mentorships, become connected in your scene, like, just enjoying like the other folks around you making art or performing or just like actually being a part of it is going to be so important. I just can't stress enough, like, bringing others up around you and like being, you know, a cheerleader for your favorite band, and maybe then they become your best friend, and then these connections keep happening and these communities are formed. Like, it's ultimately just what's going to keep all of this going.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Because everything is, like you said, so special now, and we took it kind of for granted before. The most exciting thing to me is now we can build things back up in a way that we want to see. We can change things now. There were some gatekeepers of certain things before, and I think that that's dissipated a little bit for the better. And if you are going back out there and you're not seeing what you want to see, like an event or a publication or anything like that, it's like, you can do that. You can make it yourself. And that's really exciting to me. But it's also very important to take breaks and to rest and not try and take over the world right now, because it's hard to be creative. And I'm sure we can all agree on that right now.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It feels energizing and exhilarating to sit at this point right now and have so many beautiful voices sit and take a moment to illuminate like what hopefully an equally beautiful new future will look like in the hopefully not too distant horizon. We have a question, and Arianne, I don't know if I'm allowed to be spilling trade secrets, but I think if you're watching, this might be slightly interesting. The way the video is set up, there's like, we can see each other, and then we can see like a private chat, which is kind of like a backstage. So we can see questions coming in, but then we can't see what everybody else is saying, or at least a lot of it. So hopefully you're saying nice things. I'm gonna assume so. But we have a question, and the question is from You Feeling. For those of you who are not familiar, it's a new music writing co-op, national music writing co-op that a couple of the other panelists these last couple of days have been working on, that I'm working on, that is part of this sort of futurist thinking that we were just talking about a couple of moments ago, where we sit and we imagine what something brighter could look like, something that's owned by workers and owned by people. And so this question is from that group. To give you a little bit of context, it's any specific do's and don'ts for pitch emails. What do you want to see, and how do you want to be approached? And I think what's interesting is that I am sure for all of you, you receive all different types of pitch emails, regardless of what it is, but it's like the format and the structure and the tone and the information behind it, some of those things I think can kind of be standardized across projects. So what are some of your tips?
I will say that please do not pitch people via their personal social media accounts unless it is, you know, they say this is for what, because it just feels like a breach of privacy and it just is not a good look to go off straight away. If they work in the industry, their email is usually pretty easy to find. It's usually in a Twitter bio or an Instagram bio or an Instagram link. So that's, I think, really important. And it's also important to pitch not just a publication cold, but find out, in terms of journalism, find out the writers that are covering the music that you're making and are excited about the music you're making. Because it's just going to be a massive waste of your time if you're pitching someone who doesn't like indie rock or doesn't like electronica and you're pitching your electronica project to them. They're not going to even want to listen to it. So that's a real key factor for me. Yeah, and don't be disheartened if you don't get a reply straight away. We are flooded with emails every day, and we are human, just like you, and we might need a reminder or two, but if you don't get a reply at all, don't be disheartened. Like, keep going, maybe not with that person, but with a new person. I personally do try and reply to all of my emails, but some slip through the cracks. So it's never personal.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything Sammy just said. And to add to it, just if you're sending a writer a specific pitch, like, try to do your research. Make it a little like personal. Maybe they wrote about a band that is similar. You know, it just do your homework and it'll usually prove some results.
Also, I think, like, you know, I mean, those were amazing answers, but like TLDR, like, if it's too long, like, get to the point. You know, get to the point. Block of text, I'm like, no, I can't. But yeah, I also think, like, you know, it's a really good call out that it's not shade. It's just like tough to answer a lot of emails all the time. And I also believe in a follow-up email.
Yeah.
With not a ton of text in it, but
yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that it's like just the brevity, getting straight to the point. If you have additional information, send it in an attachment, but not a whole deck. Send maybe like a few pages of your proposition, whatever the heck it is, and then schedule, like, ask if they would like or be interested in a follow-up meeting to discuss everything in greater detail. There's no reason for you to put all the information up front, because it's like dating, man. I feel like you don't want to give everything away at first. I feel you have to like you have to ask them out for coffee. Like, just like too much too soon is like a rule across the board. I think, like, just don't be too eager.
nailed it.
It's true, right? And also follow up. Yeah, the people, I feel like, need a few reminders every now and then. And it is not personal. I feel like don't follow up too often, I guess. Like, give them a few days to figure out their schedule. But, like, again, don't be too eager. Play it cool. It's gonna be fine.
That is huge, I feel. And I think something that a lot of folks forget, that on the other side of that email, it's not like a robot or it's not an algorithm. It's actually like a living, breathing person with like a heart and a soul and feelings. And like, it can be a lot when somebody comes on like really hot and heavy. I think it might have been you, Alicia, who was mentioning, or maybe Sammy, just like the act of like doing research and doing research into somebody, and actually just giving them something that's targeted. And when I was an editor at A-Side a couple of years ago, I have a lot of like weird eating habits. And somebody, which is, which, you know, I don't mind like a self drag, you know, I really like peanut butter. I like to put it on pretty much everything. And somebody was just like following me on Instagram, and they put together this like pitch, this like nice and short and sweet pitch email with like quick little length. This is what I sound like. This, if you like X, you'll like me. It was great. But the subject line and like the first sentence was like, yeah, so like I saw you're eating this on like Instagram stories. I'm like, you know, I've never thought of it. And I'm like, well, of course, nobody thinks of eating eggs and peanut butter, but like, I just appreciated that they had like that's how far the research went. And I was like, I feel seen. I was like, I feel seen and flattered. And I'm definitely going to reply to this because, you know, people like appreciate that kind of intimacy, and they appreciate that attention to detail. And I think in a really crowded pool, like those little things make the difference sometimes.
Great point. And also now I'm gonna have eggs with peanut butter. Yeah, this is great. I'm
Please
excited.
Do. Like pretty much all I talk about. I wish either an egg company or a peanut butter company would pay me, because I really like to support that.
I know a lot of them are trying to get a mustard deal. A lot of them trying to get like a mustard deal. It's so funny.
Whoa.
Yeah, people are into mustard.
Is it like the grainy Dijon or like the like yellow hot dog one?
Oh, yeah, the hot one. That hot one is a big one. But I've had more than one artist, I swear to God, be like, do you think that we could get a mustard deal?
We should start a coalition.
I think so.
And like put ourselves in front of mustard companies as a united front. So we have another question, and I'm just going to read it verbatim, which begins with, I think my question would be that. I'm not entirely sure what that part is, but as a mental health pro, my job is to destigmatize, but selling my story as a marginalized artist is the thing to do, but traumatizing and unhealthy. Despite the empowerment of the art, how will this shift help normalize within the new media? And I think, yeah, I mean, to sort of contextualize that for the panelists, which is also something I feel like we might also just be familiar with at the same time. I think for a lot of artists, especially marginalized artists, artists of color and queer artists, part of that story that you sell involves engaging and dancing with what can sometimes feel like a little bit of trauma porn, where people want your, you know, they want your story, but they want the dark parts of your story. They want the grating and shocking parts of your story, because sometimes that's the thing that can make a good headline. So I think this question is sort of asking, how do we kind of move away from that being the like understood and established way that media accepts marginalized artists, and how do we move towards something that's a little bit different?
I think a huge thing is to team the artist up with a writer who looks like them, has the same experiences as them, and to be, I mean, in terms of publications, they need to be hiring more writers that can do that, because it's never going to be a good combo if the writer doesn't understand where the artist is coming from in the first place and is just looking for that sensationalized headline. So, I mean, that's kind of needs to happen within the industry as a whole. That there's still a ways to go for that, I think. But that's a first step.
Yeah, I think that, like, as a lesbian woman of color in comedy, I think that I encounter this kind of thing a lot, like when being booked on shows and stuff. And I think that, honestly, like, if it's the trend right now to be booked for X reason, like, it depends who you're working with. You have to be able to see through different producers. Like if they're using you for whatever reason, or like reading people in those situations is very good. So in the comedy community, there will be producers who will put on a show and market it as the marginalized artist show, whatever the heck it is. There's so many marginalized artists. It could be anything. But they'll market it as this show, book those artists, and then keep most of the money for themselves while like marketing for that reason. So it's just, you have to be good at figuring out who the good producers are, who are the producers who are in the same position as you. Because if somebody's producing a show about something who is not part of that culture whatsoever, or community whatsoever, I feel like that is a major red flag right there. Usually people who are in that community themselves, they can better champion you. They've probably been through the same things as you and know the ins and outs, and they can help you find other good shows that like feature similar kinds of people, people who are probably more on your wavelength and in ways of thinking and stuff too. And that way I think that you don't need to change anything about yourself. Like your experience is your experience, and you don't need to up the trauma level or anything, or reveal as much as you want or feel comfortable doing. But I think for me personally, like stand-up is very personal, and like I share things like outright, like it's not music or anything. It's literally just my voice and me like talking about myself and my experiences. So I think that honestly, I just try to be as normal, like myself as possible. And I think that not by doing that, like there's a lot of things that straight people can identify with and relate to, and men can relate to. Like a lot of people who come up to me afterwards are men, and I'm always very surprised by that. I'm like, really? You liked those jokes? I didn't realize that you were my audience, but that's great. Thank you. So you never know, and just being yourself and being okay if somebody doesn't like what you have to say is fine too. Like they just weren't your audience, and like you don't have to play into any of those trends or like say anything that you don't want to say. But just find producers that book really good shows and respect you and your community and whatever you're going through, and you'll be golden. I think that it's always going to be a challenge if you perceive yourself as or are marginalized. It's always hard, no matter what, but that will make it easier, I think.
Yeah, I think like, I've developed a good awareness of when I'm being tokenized. And there's also times that I use that to my advantage. And I think like I've noticed a lot, especially with It's Okay, like we're in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement right now, and It's Okay puts on predominantly POC programming. And it was really interesting to see how many brands wanted to work with us, and we said no to like a lot of people and a lot of money because we were like, no, fuck you. Like you do not care about us and we don't know. But I think like, just asking for terms up front. If someone's writing an article about you, ask to see it first, have a first call with them and see what their intent looks like. You are absolutely always in the right to poke and poke and poke and make sure that it's right, excuse me, before anything goes out about you, because it's going to continue to happen. And I can foresee it like getting worse. So yeah, I think just making sure you're safe in ways that you can is the most important thing.
Absolutely. I feel like that's such a beautiful note to kind of wrap things up on, this idea of prioritizing safety and understanding safety. So I'm also recognizing that I was sitting in front of a window and then now the sun is gone. So I feel like I'm a shadow now, like very ominous. But on this notion of safety, and I think being really secure in ourselves, I think that part of what I think is so beautiful about Venus Fest, and hopefully people watching see as well, is this huge interconnected community of people that I feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the other panelists. Like, everybody at this festival, we are your allies, your support system. We are the type of people where if you're doing something and something feels wrong or you're uncertain or something feels like a red flag, that you have this built-in community that's available to you, of course, with boundaries and with kind of privacy measures in place, but that I think just knowing that there's somebody who might be on your team, even if they're at a distance, and they can help be that gut check for you, can hopefully help save a lot of pain. So I am getting a little note to wrap things up. It's like a loose, like gentle, sweet kind of urge to wrap things up. But later today, Venus Fest is hosting a town hall. You can find the links at venusfest.net. And I think that's everything. I'm not sure if we want to say a goodbye or if there are any last words. We're all feeling good. Thank you for sharing the space. We're gonna, oh, you know what? Maybe we should do like a social media tags kind of call outs. You know, maybe grab like 1 or 2 more followers, depending on what part of the internet you're on, if that's something, but I also don't know if that's also very corny. But if anybody would like to do it, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I've had it in my bio for like the whole duration of the thing. So it's at aloha.tong. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Find the things that AdHoc is doing at AdHoc FM or our website, adhoc.fm.
And at It's Okay World and at pollen.co if you want to check those guys out.
And I would just like to say that issue 7 of GoldFlakePaint went for pre-order today. We have Moses Sumney on the cover, so go get it. You can find us all over the internet. Please.
Cool. Well, on that note, thank you to everybody who was watching. Thank you to everybody who was sharing the space with us. We're really happy to have you. And if you would like to stick around and keep looking at your screen, you can continue paying attention to all of the great things Venus Fest is doing for the next couple of days too.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.